Ancient symbols on opposite sides of the world are nearly identical, carved into stones in Europe and painted on cave walls in the Americas. These mysterious designs suggest a story we are only just beginning to understand. This video uncovers the compelling evidence for a single, interconnected human family in prehistory, an idea that completely rewrites our earliest history. You will see how a shared symbolic language connects cultures separated by vast oceans and thousands of years. Why does the same spiral appear in Irish tombs and Peruvian valleys? How could a symbol of good fortune become so tragically misunderstood? By the end, your perception of the ancient world will be permanently transformed. What does it mean if our deepest ancestors were not strangers, but one family? The spiral seems to whisper a secret that every ancient culture understood. Etched into the massive entrance stone at Newgrange, Ireland, it greets the winter solstice sun, its coils mirroring the very path of the stars. Thousands of miles away, the same design emerges, carved into the rocks of the Macahuasi Plateau in Peru. This is not a simple decoration. For our ancestors, the spiral was a profound representation of existence itself, the unending cycle of life, death, and rebirth, the turning of the seasons, and the vast, swirling cosmos above. Archaeologist Marija Gimbutas saw in these symbols a deep connection to a Neolithic world, centered on the earth as a mother goddess, a source of all life. So how do we explain its universal presence? The conventional answer is convergent evolution, the idea that separate human minds, contemplating the same natural phenomena like swirling water or a coiled serpent, would naturally arrive at the same symbolic representation. It is a logical theory, yet it feels incomplete when faced with the sheer emotional and spiritual weight these symbols carried. The spiral was not just a picture, it was a philosophy carved in stone. This leads us to a more radical possibility, one that challenges the very map of human history. What if this shared visual language is a remnant of a time when humanity was not so divided? Could the spiral be a fragment of a common ancestral belief system carried to the farthest corners of the world by our migrating ancestors? To answer that, we must turn to an even more controversial and widespread symbol, one that has been both celebrated and feared across millennia. That symbol is the swastika. Its very name comes from the ancient Sanskrit language meaning well-being and good fortune. For thousands of years, this was not a mark of hatred, but a sacred sign of life and positivity. It appears on pottery fragments from Ukraine dating back over 10,000 years, making it one of the oldest symbols known to humanity. In Hinduism and Buddhism, it adorns temples and scriptures, representing the eternal wheel of life, the sun, and prosperity. Remarkably, the same symbol was used independently by the Navajo and other indigenous peoples of the Americas, often symbolizing the four winds, the four directions, and the movement of the sun across the sky. How can a single design hold such similar, profound meaning for cultures that supposedly never met? The geographical spread is staggering, creating a puzzle that cannot be easily explained by convergent evolution alone. While it is true that a cross with bent arms is a simple geometric form, the consistent association with positive spiritual concepts like good luck, the sun, and cosmic rotation points to something more. This suggests the swastika may be a conceptual relic, a piece of a shared symbolic language from a time when our ancestors were one people, carrying these core ideas with them as they journeyed across the globe. To truly appreciate its prehistoric significance, we must perform a difficult act of mental separation, peeling away the horrific layers of the 20th century to see the symbol as our ancient ancestors did, not as an emblem of destruction, but as a hopeful prayer for life itself. This journey into our shared past does not end with spirals and swastikas. An even more enigmatic shape connects the megalithic builders of Europe to the pyramid cultures of Mesoamerica, a symbol that represents the very structure of the universe. The labyrinth presents a different kind of puzzle. Unlike the spiral's cosmic swirl or the swastika's rotating arms, its structure is one of deliberate, intricate design. A single, winding path leads unerringly to a central point, a journey inward that is both a physical and a spiritual map. We find this exact same design in wildly different corners of the ancient world. In the Greek myth of the Minotaur, it was a terrifying maze built by Daedalus to contain a monster. Yet on coins from ancient Knossos, the labyrinth symbol was a revered emblem of the palace itself. Thousands of miles away, the same pattern was woven into the baskets of the Tohono O'odham people in North America, representing the path of life and the journey to the afterlife. And etched into the cold granite of Scandinavia are stone labyrinths, believed to be traps for evil spirits or aids for souls transitioning to another world. In every case, the labyrinth is never just a puzzle to be solved. It is universally understood as a profound metaphor for the human soul's difficult journey toward enlightenment, a quest to find one's true center. How could such a specific and complex idea emerge independently with the same symbolic meaning across cultures separated by oceans? A simple cross or a circle might be explained away, but the labyrinth's precise, unicursal path, one that twists and turns but never branches, is a highly distinctive design. Its structural similarity is simply too exact to be comfortably written off as pure coincidence. This points to something deeper than shared artistic instinct. It suggests our ancestors, from the shores of the Mediterranean to the deserts of Arizona, may have shared a fundamental spiritual or philosophical framework, a common understanding that the greatest journey is not across land but inward. This idea of a shared prehistoric mind becomes even more compelling when we examine a symbol that seems to represent the very architecture of reality. Perhaps the most intimate of all these ancient symbols is the simple outline of a human hand. Found in darkened caves from the sunken river valleys of Indonesia to the deep caverns of Spain and the windswept plateaus of Argentina, this is the hand stencil. The technique was always the same, a profound and personal gesture repeated across millennia. A person would press their hand flat against a rock wall, then blow a mouthful of powdered pigment, often mixed with water or animal fat, all around it. When the hand was pulled away, its perfect negative image remained, a ghostly echo of a moment frozen in time. On the surface, this seems like the most basic, intuitive act of marking one's presence, a prehistoric way of signing your name. Yet when we see the exact same practice, using the exact same method, appearing independently in locations separated by tens of thousands of years and thousands of miles of ocean, we have to wonder if we are witnessing something more profound than simple graffiti. The consistency is staggering. It is not just a handprint, it is always a stencil, a deliberate and specific technique that creates a void, a silhouette of the self. This was not a random smudge of color, it was a ritual. Many of these hands are found deep within caves, in places of total darkness, reached only by treacherous journeys. This was not a casual act for public viewing, it was a deeply spiritual one. The cave itself was often seen as a womb of the earth, a gateway to the spirit world. By leaving the imprint of their hand, an individual may have been seeking a connection with powerful forces, perhaps leaving a part of their own spirit behind, or absorbing the power of the rock. It is a primal form of identity, a way of saying not just I was here, but I am part of this place. My essence is now woven into the fabric of this sacred world. The hand stencil transcends culture and continent because it speaks to the most fundamental human questions of existence and belonging. It is a universal signature, the first and most enduring symbol of a conscious mind reaching out from the deep past to touch our own. But the handprint is a deeply personal signature, while another symbol speaks the language of the cosmos itself. The sun cross appears as a simple circle with a cross inside, a design so fundamental it could be mistaken for a child's drawing. Yet this unassuming shape is one of the most powerful and recurring symbols in the ancient world. In Bronze Age Europe, it was carved into rock faces as a representation of the sun wheel, marking the eternal cycle of the seasons and the four cardinal directions. The same symbol adorned the temples of ancient Mesopotamia, a civilization that meticulously charted the heavens, and remarkably, it was also used by the Hopi and other Pueblo peoples of North America, where it symbolized the sacred circle of life and the four world quarters. The logic seems straightforward. Any culture watching the sky would observe the sun's daily journey and its yearly path, dividing the world into north, south, east, and west. It is easy to assume that separate societies, observing these same fundamental cycles, would naturally invent the same solar wheel, but the connection runs deeper than simple observation. The specific design of a circle cleanly bisected by a cross is not the only way to depict these ideas. It is a deliberate, stylized choice. More importantly, the symbolic meaning attached to it across continents is uncannily consistent. It is never just a sun symbol. It is almost always a symbol of the whole cosmic order, the wheel of time, the balance of the four elements, and the spiritual journey through the cycles of existence. This shared complexity of meaning, wrapped in an identical geometric package, suggests something more profound than independent invention. It points to the possibility that this was a core piece of a primordial worldview, a conceptual seed about the structure of reality that was carried along the early migration routes out of humanity's cradle. When the same specific design and the same profound philosophy appear everywhere, the idea of a single, accidental origin becomes a whisper we can no longer ignore. The serpent slithers through the mythologies of the world, a creature of profound duality. In the red earth deserts of Australia, the rainbow serpent is a creator being, shaping the land itself and embodying the cycle of the seasons, from drought to life-giving rain. In ancient Mesoamerica, the feathered serpent god Quetzalcoatl was a bringer of knowledge and civilization, a symbol of death and resurrection. And in classical Greece, a single serpent coiled around the staff of Asclepius became the enduring emblem of healing and medicine. What is it about this animal that captivated the human imagination on every continent? The answer lies in a simple, powerful act of nature that every one of these cultures observed: the serpent's ability to shed its own skin. To our ancestors, this was not just biology, it was pure magic, a visible, annual demonstration of rebirth and regeneration. The old body is cast off, and a vibrant new one emerges, symbolizing the soul's journey, the renewal of the earth, and the promise of life after death. This shared observation is so fundamental, so directly tied to a universal experience of the natural world, that it feels like a clear case of independent discovery. Yet, the consistency goes deeper than the simple idea of renewal. The serpent is almost never just a symbol of new life. It is also intimately linked with the underworld, with hidden knowledge, and with the healing powers of the earth, often seen as a guardian of sacred springs and secret places. This complex bundle of meanings, death and life, poison and medicine, earth and spirit, attached to the same creature across vast distances, suggests something more than coincidence. It points to a shared layer of the human psyche, an archetype that was already fully formed in our collective mind before our species ever left its first home. The serpent, in its silent, shedding wisdom, seems to be one of the oldest inhabitants of our symbolic world, a living thread connecting the deepest dreams of humanity. While the serpent embodies the cycles of life, another set of symbols captures the very pulse of the world's raw energy. The chevron and the zigzag are among the most common patterns found in ancient art, a simple repetition of V-shapes and jagged lines that seem almost too basic to be significant. Yet their very simplicity is what makes their global presence so puzzling. We see them meticulously painted on the pottery of the Yongshao culture in ancient China, row upon row of sharp, dynamic lines. The same patterns are carved into the massive stone temples of Malta, built thousands of years ago, and they appear again, painted onto the dry rock faces of the American Southwest by ancestral Pueblo peoples. At first glance, it is easy to dismiss these as mere decoration, the prehistoric equivalent of a border pattern. But why would cultures with no conceivable contact all choose the exact same simple designs to adorn their most sacred objects and places? The answer seems to lie in the fundamental human experience of nature. Look at a flowing river, and you will see the zigzag pattern of light dancing on the water's surface. Look at a crack of lightning splitting the sky, and you see a giant, terrifying chevron. For our ancestors, these were not just pretty sights, they were the visible manifestations of immense, invisible power. Water was the source of life, and lightning was the fire of the gods. By carving these patterns into their pottery and temples, they were not just decorating, they were channeling. They were attempting to harness the essence of these powerful forces, to bring the energy of the flowing river and the celestial fire into their daily lives and spiritual rituals. This transforms the chevron and zigzag from simple designs into a shared vocabulary for the dynamic forces of the natural world. It is as if early humanity, looking out at the same thunderstorms and the same rivers, developed a common visual language to describe the unseen energy that animated the universe. This points to a mind that saw the world not as a collection of separate objects, but as a single, living, vibrating entity. And if our ancestors shared this fundamental perception, then the symbols they left behind are not just art, they are a map of a unified prehistoric consciousness. But the most fundamental mark of all might be the dot and the circle, a single point at the center surrounded by one or more rings. Its simplicity is almost misleading, like a single word from a forgotten language. Yet this symbol appears with a persistence that demands our attention. Across the windswept moors of Britain and Ireland, you can find it carved into bedrock, known as cup and ring marks. There, a central cup-like depression is encircled by grooves that ripple outward. An identical pattern appears halfway across the world, in the ancient rock art of Aboriginal Australia, where it represents a vital waterhole or a sacred campsite. How can the same geometric idea hold such significance for cultures an entire planet apart? The interpretations are as universal as the symbol itself. It is the human eye watching from the stone. It is the sun or the moon, a celestial body in the heavens. Most profoundly, it is the concept of a sacred center, a point of origin from which all of existence emanates. Think of a pebble dropped into still water, the circles expanding outwards in perfect order. This symbol captures that exact moment of creation, the emergence of something from nothing. Its deceptive simplicity is the very source of its power. It is a fundamental unit of thought, a visual atom so basic that it could be understood and replicated by anyone, anywhere. And that is the core of the mystery. When we see the dot and circle carved into a rock in Scotland and painted on a cliff face in Australia, we are not just looking at similar art. We are looking at the same foundational idea about the structure of the universe, etched into the landscape by people who seem to share a common understanding of a cosmic blueprint. This cosmic blueprint finds its most magnificent form in the myth of the World Tree. From the frosty realms of the Norse to the sweltering jungles of the Maya, the same astonishing idea takes root. The Vikings spoke of Yggdrasil, an immense ash tree whose roots reached into the underworld and whose branches supported the heavens. In ancient Mesopotamia, a sacred tree connected the earth to the domain of the gods. Siberian shamans described a cosmic pillar they would climb to journey between worlds, and the Maya envisioned a great ceiba tree, the Yaxch, standing at the very center of the world, its roots in the dark underworld of Xibalba and its branches reaching into the upper world. The artistic styles differ, a leafy ash in one culture, a spiny ceiba in another, but the underlying structure is always the same. This is the axis mundi, the central pillar of the cosmos. It is more than just a story, it is a complete model of the universe. The tree creates a vertical axis, a conduit for spiritual energy that links the three fundamental layers of existence: the heavens above, the earthly realm we inhabit, and the mysterious underworld below. The sheer consistency of this three-tiered cosmology is what staggers the imagination. How could cultures with no known contact all conceive of reality as a stack of worlds connected by a single living axis? It seems our earliest ancestors were not just sharing art, they were sharing an entire philosophy of existence. This was not a simple observation of nature, like watching a snake shed its skin. This was a profound, abstract construction, a way to answer the biggest questions of all. Where do we come from? Where do we go when we die? What connects our world to the divine? The World Tree was the answer, a symbol so powerful it gave order to the chaos of the universe. It provided a spiritual map, a central point from which everything else could be measured and understood. The fact that this specific, complex map was drawn again and again across the globe points to a shared prehistoric mind, a time when humanity's first great thinkers collectively envisioned the architecture of reality itself, planting the same timeless idea in the soil of every continent. From the cosmic tree, we now descend into the deepest caves, where another universal figure waits in the shadows. A strange and powerful form stares out from the rock wall of the Trois Freres cave in France. It is a man, yet not a man. He has the antlers of a stag, the eyes of an owl, the tail of a horse, and the posture of a dancer. Known to archaeologists as the Sorcerer, this Paleolithic painting is one of the oldest portraits of a deity ever discovered. But this horned being was not confined to Europe. Far to the east, in the ancient cities of the Indus Valley, seals have been found depicting a figure in a similar yogic posture, also crowned with massive horns surrounded by animals. And across the vast expanse of Siberia, shamans for millennia have worn antlered headdresses during their rituals, transforming themselves into spiritual conduits. This is not a coincidence of costume. This recurring image of the horned god or shaman represents one of humanity's most profound and persistent archetypes, the master of animals, a being who exists at the blurred boundary between the human world and the wild. He is the ultimate intermediary. The horns are not merely a disguise, they are a symbol of raw, untamed power and a direct connection to the spirit of the animal kingdom. This figure embodies the belief that a single, special individual could communicate with these powerful forces, could negotiate for hunting success, and could even journey into the non-human realms to bring back knowledge or healing. The consistency of this idea, from the painted caves of France to the shamanic traditions of the Taiga, is breathtaking. It suggests that the very role of the shaman, the part-time religious specialist who enters a trance state to mediate between the community and the spirit world, is not a cultural invention that happened multiple times. Instead, it appears to be a fundamental part of our species' spiritual toolkit, a role so ancient that its symbolic representation, the horned man, was carried out of Africa and across the continents by the first modern humans. This points to a time when our ancestors did not just share a symbolic language, but an entire spiritual technology, a way of understanding and interacting with the universe that was already fully formed in the dawn of our collective memory. The horned shaman peered into the spirit world, but another ancient figure looked higher into the heavens themselves. Across the globe, our ancestors raised stones to the sky in a silent, concerted effort to read the cosmos. From the windswept Salisbury Plain in England, where Stonehenge captures the rising solstice sun, to the sun-baked desert of Nabta in Egypt, where a stone circle older than Stonehenge marks the summer solstice, the pattern is undeniable. On the Mediterranean island of Malta, the Mnajdra temples are so precisely engineered that the equinox sunrise illuminates their central corridor with a blade of light. These are not random piles of rock. They are colossal calendars, astronomical observatories built with a staggering investment of labor and time. Why would cultures separated by continents and oceans all feel the same powerful urge to build in stone and align their creations with the sun, moon, and stars? The answer points to a fundamental shift in the human story. When hunter-gatherers settled and became farmers, their survival became tethered to the seasons. Knowing when to plant and when to harvest was a matter of life and death. The sky became their clock and their calendar, but the sheer scale and precision of these structures suggest something more profound than simple agriculture. It reveals a deep-seated, shared desire to understand the mechanics of the universe, to find order in the celestial dance, and to codify that order into the very landscape. This global investment in megalithic astronomy implies a prehistoric mindset that saw humanity as an integral part of a larger cosmic system. The impulse to build Stonehenge, Mnajdra, and Nabta was not just practical, it was philosophical. It was the same human mind in different locations, striving to answer the same eternal questions, leaving behind a testament in stone that their gaze was fixed on the same stars. These stone observatories charted the predictable rhythms of the cosmos, but another ancient story speaks of a time when the world itself was violently reshaped. A great flood washes over the mythologies of the world with a startling consistency. In the ancient Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh, the god E warns the hero Utnapishtim to build a boat to save his family and the seed of all living things from a divine deluge. In the biblical book of Genesis, Noah receives a similar divine instruction to build an ark. Far to the east, Hindu scriptures tell of Manu, who is warned by a fish to build a ship to survive a catastrophic flood that will cleanse the world. And this narrative is not confined to the Old World. Indigenous peoples from the Americas, from the Hopi to the Haida, tell of a great flood that covered the land, with only a few survivors escaping in boats or climbing to the highest mountain peaks. Even the Aboriginal peoples of Australia have stories of a time when the sea rose to cover coastal lands. The core elements are always the same: a warning from a higher power, the construction of a vessel, the saving of a remnant of life, and the eventual receding of the waters to reveal a new world. The sheer geographical spread of this nearly identical story is difficult to ignore. How can cultures with no known historical contact all share the same dramatic tale? While some of these stories could be explained by local river flooding, the global scale of the myth points to something far more significant. Many researchers now propose that these are not mere fables, but the distant, fragmented cultural memories of a real and terrifying global event. The rapid sea level rises at the end of the last ice age. Around 12,000 years ago, as the great glaciers melted, ocean levels rose by hundreds of feet, swallowing vast coastal plains that were once home to human populations. What was once dry land, territory that early humans had lived on for millennia, disappeared beneath the waves in a geological instant. The trauma of this event, the loss of ancestral homelands, and the terrifying power of the rising water would have been seared into the collective memory of the survivors. These stories were then carried by their descendants as they moved inland, evolving over thousands of years into the flood myths we know today. This suggests that these narratives are more than just shared symbols. They are a shared echo of a real cataclysm, a collective memory of a lost world passed down through generations of storytellers. It is a haunting thought that the same fear of drowning and the same hope for salvation might be a legacy from a time when our ancestors stood together on a shrinking shore, watching the waters rise. The great flood myths speak of a lost world, but another clue to our shared past is literally buried in the earth, its color a vivid red. Long before the first pyramid was built or the first stone circle raised, humanity was using red ochre in a deeply symbolic way. This naturally occurring clay, rich with iron oxide, is found at ancient sites spanning the globe, from the very cradle of humanity in Africa to the farthest reaches of Australia. Its use is staggeringly old, with evidence dating back more than 100,000 years. But this was far more than just a practical pigment for painting. The key to understanding ochre lies in where and how it was used. Our ancestors repeatedly placed it in graves, sprinkling it over the bodies of the dead. They used it to paint their own skin and to adorn sacred objects. Why this particular color, and why was its use so consistent? The answer seems to pulse just beneath our own skin. The vibrant, life-giving red of ochre is the color of blood. For our early ancestors, blood was the ultimate mystery, the very essence of life. To lose it was to die, yet women bled monthly without harm, and new life emerged from a tide of it. In covering a body with red ochre, they were not simply decorating the dead. They were performing a profound act of symbolism, perhaps an attempt to restore the lost life force, to give back the blood that had departed. This was a prayer for rebirth, a hope that the end in this world was merely a pause before a new beginning in another. The fact that this same practice with the same symbolic meaning appears independently across continents is one of the most powerful arguments for a unified prehistoric mind. It was not a cultural trend that spread. It was a foundational idea that emerged from a common understanding of the world. The use of red ochre suggests that the very first glimmers of spiritual thought, the first questions about life and death, were answered in the same way by minds that were fundamentally the same. They looked at the mystery of existence and reached for the same red earth to express their hope, their reverence, and their awe. From the red earth of the grave, the soul would need a guide to the spirit world, and our ancestors consistently looked to the sky for one. Birds captured in mid-flight on the walls of Lascaux Cave in France and etched into the stones of ancient American sites are far more than just animals in this art. They are universally cast in a specific, powerful role, that of the psychopomp. This ancient Greek term describes a being whose sole purpose is to escort the souls of the newly deceased to the afterlife, and this exact concept appears in cultures that had been separated for thousands of years. In ancient Egypt, the Ba, a part of the human soul, was depicted as a bird with a human head, able to fly freely between the tomb and the celestial realms. Norse mythology told of Valkyries, often shown with swan feathers or cloaks, who carried the souls of fallen warriors to Valhalla. And across the Pacific, many Native American traditions hold that certain birds, like the eagle or the raven, carry prayers to the Great Spirit and guide the souls of the dead on their final journey. Why would a crow in Scandinavia and an eagle in North America be given the same sacred job? The logic seems rooted in a simple, shared observation anyone could make. A bird lives in our world, walking on the ground, but at any moment it can do something we cannot. It can ascend into the sky, vanishing into the clouds, into the realm of the sun and the stars, a place that has always been associated with the divine. The bird becomes the perfect intermediary, the only creature that can freely cross the ultimate boundary, the horizon. It knows the way to that other world. This is not just a random assignment of meaning. It is a sophisticated philosophical conclusion reached independently by countless cultures. The consistency of this psychopomp role points to a deep, shared layer in the human psyche, an intuitive understanding that death is not an end, but a journey to another plane of existence, and that a guide is needed for the passage. When you see a bird painted in a dark cave or carved on a tombstone, you are not just looking at a depiction of wildlife. You are witnessing an ancient and universal hope, a prayer that when the final moment comes, a messenger will descend from the heavens to lead the way home. The vulture offers another profound key to this ancient symbolic language, a creature whose role was as misunderstood as it was sacred. At the sprawling Neolithic town of Çatalhöyük in Anatolia, a stunning mural was uncovered, depicting vultures with human legs meticulously interacting with headless human figures. Far from a scene of horror, this is believed to represent a sky burial, a practice where the dead were exposed to be cleansed by these birds. The vulture was not a monster, it was a divine undertaker. This same reverence echoed along the Nile. The Egyptian goddess Nekhbit was depicted as a vulture, a protective mother figure for the pharaoh and a symbol of purification. In both cultures, separated by centuries and geography, the vulture performed the same essential alchemical role. It consumed the corruptible flesh of the dead, destroying the mortal shell, and in doing so, releasing the eternal spirit for its journey into the afterlife. This is a stunningly sophisticated and consistent concept. The vulture was the ultimate agent of transformation, turning death into a form of flight. How could two such complex societies arrive at this same nuanced, almost scientific understanding of the scavenger's ecological role, and then elevate it to a spiritual principle? It is difficult to attribute this to simple observation alone. Watching a vulture circle and feed is a raw, natural process, but interpreting that process as a sacred, necessary purification, a cosmic recycling that benefits the soul, requires a specific philosophical framework. The shared vulture symbolism points directly to the existence of that framework, a very old, deeply rooted complex of ideas about death not as an end, but as a transition facilitated by the most unlikely of guides. This suggests that long before Çatalhöyük or the pyramids, our ancestors had already mapped the soul's journey, and they saw in the circling vulture not an omen of despair, but a promise of release. Soaring above the empires of the ancient world, a creature with two heads gazes simultaneously into the past and the future. The double-headed eagle is a symbol of such immense and specific power that its sudden appearance across disconnected continents defies any simple explanation. We find it first among the Hittites of Anatolia, a civilization of mighty fortresses and chariot armies, where it represented the unshakable authority of the emperor. Then, thousands of miles away and thousands of years later, a nearly identical form emerges in the art of Mesoamerica. How can this be? The conventional historical map offers no trade route between the Hittite kingdom and the rising cultures of the Americas. While the later use of the double-headed eagle in Byzantine and Holy Roman heraldry can be traced through the flow of history and conquest, its ancient appearances stand as separate, mysterious peaks. This is not a simple geometric shape born from observing nature, like a spiral or a zigzag. The double-headed eagle is a complex, deliberate invention, a fusion of ideas made flesh and feather. Its power lies in its inherent duality. A single-headed eagle is a majestic predator, a symbol of the sun and of supreme authority, but an eagle with two heads transcends that. It sees in two directions at once, governing both the east and the west. It exists in two realms simultaneously, the material world and the spiritual world. It embodies the union of opposites, the sacred and the secular, the temporal and the eternal. This sophisticated concept of dual sovereignty seems to have sprung fully formed from the prehistoric mind. Its recurrence suggests that the very idea of divine kingship, of a ruler who serves as a bridge between heaven and earth, may have been part of that shared ancestral worldview. The symbol itself is a perfect, silent articulation of that philosophy. The ruler is not just a man, he is the living axis, the point where the two worlds meet, and his emblem is an eagle that never blinks, watching over both domains with a single, divided consciousness. This ancient symbol of unified power points to a time when our ancestors conceived of divinity in a very specific way, a concept that may find its ultimate expression in a single, silent figure found from the frozen north to the arid south. The double-headed eagle embodies a ruler's dual gaze, but another hybrid creature represents the union of the cosmos itself. The plumed serpent, known to the Aztecs as Quetzalcoatl, is a breathtaking fusion of two of our most fundamental symbols. Its body is the powerful, coiling serpent of the earth, while its magnificent plumes are the feathers of a celestial bird, a quetzal, reaching for the sky. This is not a random monster, it is a perfect philosophical equation made manifest. It represents the essential balance between the world below and the heavens above, the marriage of earthly knowledge and divine wisdom. Yet this specific, complex idea of a feathered serpent is not confined to Mesoamerica. Across the Atlantic, in ancient Egypt, we find the winged serpent, a creature that often appears coiled in a circle, an ouroboros, but with the unmistakable addition of bird-like wings. And if we look to the dragons of Asian mythology, they are rarely the fire-breathing beasts of Western lore. Instead, they are long, serpentine beings, often depicted with feathers or feather-like scales, and possessing the power of flight, associated with water, wisdom, and benevolent rule. How do we explain this recurring fusion? It is one thing for cultures to independently create a serpent symbol or a bird symbol, but to independently arrive at the same hybrid, and to imbue it with such similar meanings of cosmic balance and enlightened knowledge, feels like more than a coincidence. This points to a profound parallel in the development of human thought. It suggests that as our ancestors began to ponder the nature of reality, they arrived at a similar profound conclusion, that the universe is composed of opposing but complementary forces, and that true wisdom, true power, comes from their integration. The earth and the sky, the material and the spiritual, must be woven together. The plumed serpent is the ultimate symbol of that integration, a mythological concept so powerful and so complete that it seems to have sprung from a common ancestral root in the deep, shared mind of humanity. This triune goddess appears not as a single deity, but as a trinity of faces. In Celtic Ireland, the land itself was ruled by the Morrigan, a powerful trio of sisters who embodied the entire scope of fate, from sovereignty and war to prophecy and death. Across the Mediterranean, the ancient Greeks worshipped the threefold moon goddess, seen in the separate but linked figures of Artemis the untamed maiden, Selene the luminous mother in the sky, and Hecate, the wise crone of the crossroads and the underworld. And in the rich tapestry of Hinduism, the supreme feminine force, Shakti, manifests as the trinity of Saraswati, the maiden of knowledge and arts, Lakshmi, the mother of abundance and prosperity, and Parvati, the powerful crone who is also the transformative force of time. The names are different, the cultural contexts are worlds apart, yet the underlying architecture of the archetype is identical. This is not a simple case of three separate goddesses. It is a single, profound philosophical concept expressed through three interconnected aspects. The maiden represents the potential of new beginnings, the waxing moon, the spring of life. The mother embodies creation itself, the full moon, the peak of power and nourishment. The crone signifies wisdom, closure, and the waning moon, the necessary end that makes all new beginnings possible. Why would cultures with no known contact all choose to fracture the divine feminine into this specific, three-part structure to explain the world? It seems our ancestors were mapping the most fundamental patterns they observed in nature onto their understanding of the sacred. They saw the three phases of the moon, the three seasons of a woman's life, and the three great stages of all existence: birth, life, and death. This triple goddess was their way of saying that the universe does not operate on a simple linear path, but in a continuous, sacred cycle. The presence of this complex archetype across the globe suggests a shared prehistoric mind that had already arrived at a unified theory of existence, one where the divine was inherently cyclical, and where the feminine principle was the primary engine of that eternal, turning wheel. The stones themselves seem to whisper a secret of shared knowledge, a secret of measurement. A retired Oxford engineering professor named Alexander Thom spent decades meticulously surveying hundreds of these stone circles across Britain and Brittany. After thousands of measurements, he proposed a startling theory that the builders had not simply piled rocks at random. Instead, they had used a precise, standardized unit of length, which he called the Megalithic Yard. According to his data, this unit measured just over 2.72 feet, or about 83 centimeters, and it appeared to have been used in the construction of sites separated by hundreds of miles. This was not a casual observation. Thom argued that the diameters of the stone circles, the spacing between the stones, and the geometries of more complex shapes like egg-shaped rings were all multiples of this single, universal measure. The implication was profound. It suggested that the scattered communities of prehistoric Europe were not isolated groups of primitive farmers. They were part of a coordinated cultural network, a brotherhood of builders who shared not only a common symbolic language, but a common system of advanced mathematics and engineering. Of course, this idea is fiercely debated. Critics point out the difficulty of proving such a standard from weathered, often partially collapsed monuments. They suggest that patterns can be found in any large set of data if one looks hard enough, a phenomenon called confirmation bias. Yet, even setting aside the contentious megalithic yard, the geometrical sophistication on display is undeniable and deeply puzzling. How do we explain the fact that a stone circle in the Scottish Highlands and another on the coast of Brittany both exhibit a precise understanding of Pythagorean triangles, a mathematical principle that would not be formally described for thousands of years? These are not rough approximations. At many sites, the layouts are complex geometrical figures, flattened circles and precise ellipses that require a sophisticated knowledge of rope and stake surveying techniques. The builders were clearly working from a shared blueprint, a common school of thought that understood the secrets of manipulating space and form. Whether you accept the megalithic yard or not, the sheer consistency of this engineering knowledge points to a startling conclusion. The megalithic world was far more interconnected than we ever imagined. A master architect or a school of them must have traveled the ancient coastlines and riverways, carrying this sacred geometry from one community to the next. This was not just about building calendars to track the sun. It was about encoding a universal order into the very landscape, using a shared rule that turned scattered stones into a continent-wide testament of a single brilliant mind. Perhaps the most humble and mysterious of all these ancient symbols is the cupule. A cupule is simply a small, cup-shaped depression pecked into a rock surface, a hollow no bigger than the palm of your hand. It is an act of creation so simple it seems almost meaningless, yet it is the most common form of rock art on Earth. You can find these countless little pits on every continent, from the ancient landscapes of Africa and Australia to the granite outcrops of North America and the river stones of India. They appear in the deepest caves and on the highest mountain ledges, created over a span of time that covers hundreds of thousands of years. What could possibly be the purpose of this relentless global pecking? The frustrating and beautiful truth is that we may never know for sure. In some places, groups of cupules are arranged in patterns that mirror constellations, suggesting they were used as astronomical counters to track the movements of the moon and stars. In other contexts, they are found in sacred spaces, where the rhythmic act of creating them may have been a form of meditation or a prayer made solid through the patient tapping of stone against stone. Some researchers believe they were symbolic receptacles, meant to hold offerings of blood, water, or grain, connecting the living rock to the cycles of life. The sheer universality of the cupule points to something deeper than any single function. It feels like a primal human impulse, a foundational mark that precedes all other art. Before the first spiral was carved or the first hand was stenciled, there was the simple act of making a cup in a stone. This was not about depicting something seen in nature, like a serpent or a bird. This was about interacting with the world in a fundamentally new way, about imposing a human will onto the inert stone and creating a void where there was only solidity. The cupule is a mystery that connects a Paleolithic hunter in Africa to a Neolithic farmer in Europe and a shaman in the Americas. It is a silent, global language where the grammar has been lost, leaving only the punctuation marks scattered across the globe, each one a testament to a human hand and a mind that sought to make its mark on the world. The thunderous power of the bull echoes through the deep chambers of time. In the flickering torchlight of Lascaux and Chauvet caves, its massive, charging form was painted with a breathtaking vitality, a testament to the awe and fear it inspired in Paleolithic hunters. This was not merely a depiction of food, it was a portrait of a formidable spirit. This same reverence for the bull traveled forward into the age of civilizations. In Minoan Crete, the creature took center stage in the legendary bull-leaping ceremonies, where acrobats vaulted over its horns in a ritual that blurred the line between sport, worship, and a direct confrontation with raw, untamed power. Far to the east, in the meticulously planned cities of the Indus Valley, seals have been found carved with a proud, humped bull, a clear symbol of strength and economic prosperity. And in the epic poetry of Mesopotamia, the bull of heaven was a celestial weapon, a being whose very death could shake the foundations of the world. Why did cultures separated by continents and millennia all fixate on this one particular animal? The answer lies in a universal human experience that shaped our earliest societies. The bull represented an almost unimaginable concentration of force. Its sheer muscle could shatter bones and overturn carts, its bellow could freeze the blood, and its horns were natural weapons of immense danger. To hunt a bull or to later domesticate it was to engage directly with the most potent life force in the immediate environment. This was not a symbolic choice made in abstraction. It was a response etched into the human psyche by necessity. survival depended on understanding and, in a way, aligning oneself with this ultimate expression of virility and fertility. The bull's power was the power of nature itself, a force that could both create and destroy. Its symbolism was not invented, it was discovered, a fundamental truth recognized by every culture whose existence was intertwined with the might of the wild. But long before we built with stone, we forged a bond with another species. The earliest known burial of a human and a dog together dates back over 14,000 years, a poignant discovery found in what is now Germany. In that ancient grave, a man, a woman, and a puppy were laid to rest as a family, their journey into the afterlife begun together. This was not an isolated act. From the frozen steppes of Siberia to the fertile crescents of the Middle East, we find the skeletons of dogs carefully placed beside their human companions, their bodies sometimes arranged in a posture of sleep or curled as if for warmth. These were not mere animals discarded after death. They were being given a ritual send-off, an honor that suggests they were seen as possessing something beyond a utilitarian value. They had souls. This profound practice reveals a relationship that was emotional and spiritual from its very dawn. The dog was not just the first animal we domesticated. It was the first to be welcomed into the inner sanctum of our hearts and our beliefs about the afterlife. Why would cultures with no contact all feel compelled to bury their dogs with such care? It speaks to a universal experience, a recognition of a unique connection. A dog offers a loyalty that feels unconditional, a companionship that transcends the simple master-servant dynamic. Our ancestors must have looked into the eyes of their canine partners and seen a kind of understanding, a spark of consciousness that mirrored their own. In a world full of unpredictable forces, the dog was a constant, a guardian not just of the physical camp but of the human spirit. By including them in the sacred rites of death, they were affirming a belief that this bond was not severed by mortality. The dog's journey did not end at the grave. It continued as a guide, a protector, a familiar spirit accompanying its human through the unknown realms of death. This shared prehistoric impulse to honor our canine friends points to one of the oldest and most enduring truths of the human experience, that we have never truly been alone on this earth. From the mud at the bottom of a still pond, a perfect flower rises. The lotus or water lily is a living paradox, its roots buried in darkness and decay while its blossom opens immaculate to the sun. This powerful image captivated the ancient Egyptians, who saw in it the very act of creation, a symbol of the sun god emerging from the primordial waters. In the spiritual traditions of India, the lotus became the ultimate emblem of purity and non-attachment, representing the soul's ability to rise unscathed from the material world and achieve enlightenment. But then we cross an ocean and find the same idea waiting. In the humid jungles of the Maya, the water lily motif appears again, intricately carved into stone and painted on pottery. Here it adorned the headdresses of kings and was intimately linked to the underworld and the cycle of rebirth. How do we explain this? The lotus does not grow in the Americas. The Maya were depicting a different, local species of water lily, yet they assigned it the same profound spiritual meaning. This is not a case of a simple, pretty flower being admired by different cultures. It is the specific, powerful metaphor of the flower's life cycle that is being replicated. The journey from the mud through the water and into the clean air and light is a perfect, ready-made allegory for the soul's own journey, from the darkness of ignorance through the trials of life and into the brilliance of spiritual awakening. It is an allegory of resurrection, of life emerging from death. The fact that both Egyptian priests and Maya shamans independently seized upon this same plant with this same complex meaning suggests something fundamental about the human mind. When contemplating the great mysteries of existence and the afterlife, our ancestors, looking at their own local ponds and rivers, seem to have arrived at the same beautiful conclusion. The path to the divine was not a straight line, but a flower rising from the deep. The dead were always with them, just beneath their feet. Across the ancient world, from the gloomy halls of the Greek Hades to the dusty silence of the Mesopotamian Urkala and the treacherous ball courts of the Maya Xibalba, the afterlife was not a celestial paradise. It was a kingdom below, a subterranean realm of shadows and silence. This shared geography of the soul's final destination is one of the most persistent and haunting patterns in all of mythology. Why would cultures with no conceivable contact all imagine the land of the dead as being under the ground? The answer may be as simple and as profound as the act of burial itself. For tens of thousands of years, humanity has laid its loved ones to rest in the earth. It was a practical necessity, of course, but it was also a powerful, daily ritual that forged a direct symbolic link. The body was placed in the ground, and so, logically, the spirit must have descended into that same dark world. The earth was not just dirt and stone, it was the great receiver, the womb from which life sprang and to which it returned. This was not a philosophical abstraction. It was a tangible reality experienced by every community. They watched the seed placed in the soil and saw new life emerge, a cycle that offered a powerful metaphor for the fate of the human soul. The underworld was not merely a place of punishment. It was a place of transformation, of waiting, and of potential rebirth, much like the seed sleeping in the winter earth. This universal practice of interment created a universal map of the cosmos, one where the vertical axis was paramount, with the heavens above for the gods and the vibrant earth in the middle, all resting upon the foundational, silent kingdom of the dead below. This consistent vision points to a time when our ancestors did not just share art or tools, but a fundamental understanding of life's greatest mystery, an understanding literally carved into the very ground they walked on. Deep within the oldest stories we tell, a single, powerful rhythm beats like a universal heart. The hero hears a call to adventure, leaving the safety of home to cross into a world of unknown dangers. There they face impossible trials, confront a great evil, and with the help of mysterious allies, secure a decisive victory. But the journey is not complete until they return to their people, bearing a gift of wisdom or a boon that transforms their world. This is the monomyth, the hero's journey, a story pattern so consistent across cultures that it feels less like an invention and more like a part of our very wiring. The Mesopotamian king Gilgamesh travels to the ends of the earth in his quest for immortality, a journey mirrored thousands of years later by the Maya hero twins in the Popol Vuh, who descend into the terrifying underworld of Xibalba to challenge the gods of death. You find this same architecture in the Greek tales of Hercules, in the legends of the Norse god Odin, and in the epic of the Buddha. How can such a specific narrative blueprint appear, fully formed, in civilizations that had no possible contact? The scholar Joseph Campbell, who mapped this territory, believed it was not a story that was spread, but a story that spontaneously grew from the shared soil of the human mind. This narrative structure is a fundamental archetype, a psychic blueprint for the process of transformation that every individual must undergo. We all leave the ordinary world of childhood, face the trials of life, and seek to return with a deeper understanding of who we are. The myth is a map for this inner process, a guide for the soul. The sheer ubiquity of this map suggests our prehistoric ancestors were not just sharing symbols, but entire stories, entire frameworks for understanding the great adventure of consciousness. Around the primal fire, long before the written word, the first storytellers were not just entertaining, they were encoding a spiritual technology, a single, profound story of becoming that belonged to all of humanity. This careful positioning of the body speaks a silent but powerful language. Across the globe, from the oldest Neolithic villages to the most remote islands, our ancestors repeatedly laid their dead to rest in a curled, flexed position, with the knees drawn up tightly towards the chest. This was not a casual act. To place a body in such a posture requires deliberate effort, often tying the limbs in place before rigor mortis sets in. Why go to such trouble? One of the most poignant interpretations is that this posture mimics the fetus in the womb. It is a profound symbolic act, a final gesture that completes the great circle of existence. Just as life began curled within the mother, so too does it return to the earth in the same position, suggesting a belief that death was not an end, but a return to the source, a preparation for a new birth in the spirit world. In other contexts, the flexed body resembles a person in a deep and peaceful sleep, further reinforcing the idea of death as a temporary state, a rest before an awakening. But the symbolism did not end with the body's posture. The direction the body faced was often a matter of intense ritual significance. In many European megalithic tombs, skeletons are found oriented on an east-west axis, their heads pointing towards the rising sun, as if awaiting the dawn of a new day in the afterlife. In ancient Egyptian burials, the dead were typically laid with their heads to the north, facing the circumpolar stars, the so-called imperishable ones that never set, symbolizing an eternal existence. This shared grammar of body placement creates a startling pattern. It reveals a universal, prehistoric concern that transcended local customs, a deep-seated anxiety about the soul's journey. The physical body had to be arranged correctly, like a key in a lock, to ensure the spiritual one could find its way. The consistent effort to treat the dead with such specific, symbolic care points to a foundational layer of human belief, a shared understanding that death was a transition that required a precise and sacred map. The body itself was the first landmark on that map, its curled form and its cardinal alignment a silent prayer for safe passage, a final act of love and hope carved into the very bones of the departed. These small, carved women hold a silent, powerful presence in the deep past. From the valleys of France to the frozen plains of Siberia, these so-called Venus figurines emerge from the soil, each one a stunning echo of the others. They are palm-sized sculptures of the female form, carved from stone, bone, or mammoth ivory, and they all share a specific, exaggerated anatomy. Their breasts, bellies, and hips are full and pronounced, while their faces are often blank and their feet tapered, as if they were meant to be held or stuck into the earth. For decades, the standard interpretation was straightforward. These were fertility goddesses, prehistoric prayers for abundance and successful childbirth, carved by hunters hoping to ensure the survival of their clans in a brutally cold world. This makes intuitive sense in an environment as unforgiving as the Ice Age mammoth steppe, where the next meal was never guaranteed and the survival of every child was precarious. The ability to create new life would have been the ultimate magic. The figurine then becomes a powerful talisman, a concentrated essence of that life-giving power that one could carry in a hand or place reverently in a dwelling. The fact that these objects are found across such a vast territory, from the Pyrenees to the remote riverbanks of Siberia, is perhaps the most compelling part of the mystery. It suggests that the highly mobile hunter-gatherer bands who roamed this world were not isolated strangers. They were part of a vast, interconnected cultural network, sharing a common system of beliefs that stretched for thousands of miles. These small stone women were the common currency of their spirituality. But what if fertility was only one part of their meaning? The sheer consistency of the form, repeated for thousands of years across a continent, points to something more profound than a simple good luck charm for hunters. It suggests the existence of a universal archetype, a primordial image of the mother that was already deeply embedded in the human psyche. She was not just a symbol of human birth, but of the earth's own boundless generosity, a divine mother who governed the cycles of all living things, from the great mammoth herds to the very roots of the tundra grasses. In her exaggerated curves, our ancestors may have seen the ultimate promise of survival itself, a reassurance that even in the deepest ice, life would always find a way to swell and continue. That primal red of the ochre points to a deeper mystery, the color itself. Red seems to be burned into the human psyche as a fundamental symbol, its meaning echoing across cultures that never met. In the royal tombs of ancient Egypt, artisans used vibrant red ochre to paint the walls of the burial chambers, a color reserved for rituals of power and the afterlife. Far to the east, the potters of Neolithic China consistently chose a brilliant red cinnabar to decorate their most sacred vessels, long before a single empire rose. And across the ocean, indigenous peoples of the Americas used red pigments in ceremonies of war and spirituality, marking the body with the color of potency. Why would a simple wavelength of light carry such identical, heavy meaning everywhere we look? The answer may lie in our own bodies. Red is the color of the life force that pulses just beneath our skin. It is the first color we see at birth and the last to drain away in death. It is the color of the fire that kept the dark and the predators at bay, the central hearth around which the community gathered for warmth, for cooking, and for storytelling. This was not a cultural choice, it was a biological and experiential reality. Our earliest ancestors did not have to invent the symbolism of red, they lived it every day. The color became a direct conduit to the most vital forces of existence, life and death, danger and protection, sacred power and pure energy. This shared response is so fundamental it feels pre-linguistic, a piece of our collective subconscious that was already in place before the first word for the color was ever spoken. When an Egyptian priest, a Chinese potter, and a Native American shaman all reached for the same red pigment, they were not copying each other. They were each, independently, tapping into the same deep, human well of meaning, drawing forth the same powerful truth about what it means to be alive. Another deceptively simple symbol waits in the darkness of the caves, a pattern of straight lines crossing each other to form a perfect grid. Etched onto a piece of ivory in Paleolithic Europe and painted onto rock shelters in the Australian outback, this basic checkerboard design appears with a quiet persistence. On the surface, it is the easiest thing in the world to draw, a few strokes of a tool. It could be a literal drawing of a net for fishing, a map of fields, or the impression of woven fabric pressed into clay. Yet the context of these grids tells a more profound story. They are often found alongside clear spiritual symbols like hand stencils and animal spirits in the deepest, most inaccessible parts of caves. This placement suggests their purpose was far more than mundane. What if these lines were not a picture of something, but a diagram of everything? Some researchers propose that the grid is humanity's first blueprint for the cosmos. By dividing space into a series of neat, identical squares, our ancestors were performing a revolutionary mental act. They were imposing a human sense of order onto the wild, unpredictable chaos of nature. The grid creates a conceptual container for the world, a way to measure, to count, and to understand the relationship between things. It is the ultimate symbol of a mind trying to take control, to create a model of reality that could be held in the hand or fixed on a wall. This simple lattice may have represented the very structure of the spirit world, a map of the realms one might journey through in a trance state. Or perhaps it was a symbolic division of the world into the sacred and the profane, the known and the unknown. Its power lies in its pure abstraction. While a spiral mirrors the galaxy and a serpent mirrors renewal, the grid mirrors the architecture of the human mind itself, our innate desire to find pattern and structure in the universe. The fact that this same cognitive tool emerged independently across the globe points to a shared mental leap, a moment when humanity, everywhere, began to draw lines in the sand and in doing so, began to map the cosmos itself. The night sky was humanity's first storybook, its stars forming the same familiar characters for every culture beneath them. Consider the Pleiades, that tiny, glittering cluster that has captivated storytellers for millennia. To the ancient Greeks, they were the 7 daughters of the Titan Atlas, placed in the heavens to escape the relentless pursuit of the hunter Orion. On the other side of the world, Aboriginal groups in Australia looked up at that very same cluster and also saw a group of sisters, the Yerad Kurrang, being chased by the men of the Orion constellation. And crossing the Pacific, many Native American tribes, like the Cherokee, also told tales of the Pleiades as a group of young girls who fled into the sky to save themselves. This is the profound mystery of the constellations. We are not just looking at cultures independently naming the same bright stars, which could be explained by simple visual prominence. We are witnessing them independently weaving the same kinds of human dramas onto the celestial canvas. Why would cultures with no possible contact all look at that specific, random scattering of stars and see not just a pattern, but a story of sisters, of flight, of pursuit? The stars themselves are silent and impersonal. They offer no inherent narrative about sisters or hunters. That meaning was projected onto them by the human mind. This consistent act of projection, of seeing our own social relationships and fears reflected in the cold, distant lights, suggests something fundamental about our shared psyche. It points to a prehistoric layer of consciousness, a time before the Great Migrations, when the first stories were being told under a sky everyone could see. Long before we built walls or nations, we were already building the same myths, connecting the same dots in the heavens to tell stories about ourselves. This universal sense of the forbidden is the invisible architecture of early society. We find it everywhere, this powerful division of the world into the sacred and the profane, the pure and the polluted. A specific rock, a particular grove of trees, or even a single word could be declared taboo, set apart from ordinary use and touched only with reverence or outright fear. In ancient Polynesia, the word taboo itself described things so charged with spiritual power that contact with them was dangerous for common people. The ancient Hebrews had countless prohibitions governing everything from diet to ritual purity, and in the indigenous tribes of the Americas, certain animals were considered taboo to hunt at specific times, or particular places were so sacred that even entering them was forbidden. This is not a quirk of individual cultures, it is a global pattern. The development of this shared concept would have been absolutely essential for the survival of our earliest ancestors. Imagine a small band of hunter-gatherers. Without written laws or a police force, how do you maintain order? How do you protect your only water source from contamination? How do you ensure that someone does not offend the spirits believed to control the weather and the hunt? The answer was taboo. By declaring something forbidden through shared spiritual belief, the group created a powerful, self-enforcing social rule. Violating a taboo was not just a crime against the community, it was an offense against the cosmos itself, inviting supernatural punishment that could bring drought, disease, or famine upon everyone. This spiritual deterrent was far more powerful than any human threat. It was the glue that held early societies together, a psychological and social technology that allowed humans to cooperate on a large scale. The fact that this same complex idea of ritual prohibition appears in every corner of the globe suggests it was not invented multiple times. It feels like a foundational piece of our ancestral toolkit, a core concept about how to live together in a world filled with unseen forces, carried in the minds of the first humans as they stepped out to populate the Earth. This intellectual battle forms the very heart of the mystery. On one side stands the theory of independent invention, a concept known as polygenesis. Its argument is elegant and logical. Human beings, no matter where they are, share the same fundamental brain structure and sensory experiences. They all watch the same sun rise, feel the same fear of predators, and witness the same miracle of birth. It is only natural, proponents argue, that separate cultures contemplating these universal truths would arrive at similar symbolic representations. A spiral emerges from watching swirling water. A zigzag mimics a flash of lightning. The idea of an underworld springs from the simple, universal act of burying the dead. According to this view, the shared symbols are not evidence of contact, but a testament to the shared hardware of the human mind, a beautiful example of parallel evolution in the realm of ideas. The evidence from genetics often seems to support this, showing distinct populations developing in isolation for tens of thousands of years. How could they have maintained such precise symbolic connections across such vast spans of time and space? The polygenesis argument provides a comfortable, scientifically grounded explanation that does not require rewriting the map of human migration. Yet, for all its logic, it can feel unsatisfying when confronted with the sheer specificity of some symbols. Can we truly believe that the complex, abstract concept of a feathered serpent representing cosmic balance was independently conceived in both Mesoamerica and ancient Egypt? That the intricate, unicursal path of the labyrinth with its identical spiritual meaning was a random, repeated discovery? This is where the other side of the debate raises its compelling, if controversial, voice, the theory of hyperdiffusionism. This idea proposes that a single, advanced source civilization, perhaps lost beneath the waves or buried under polar ice, was the original wellspring from which all later cultures drew their knowledge and their symbols. Imagine a highly sophisticated society in the distant past, a global seafaring culture that traveled the world, planting the seeds of civilization and a shared symbolic language wherever they went. This would explain the sudden, simultaneous appearance of pyramid building, megalithic astronomy, and complex mythologies in disconnected parts of the world. It would account for the identical measurements of the Megalithic Yard and the precise astronomical alignments found from Britain to Peru. The flood myths, in this view, are not just shared trauma, they are the literal, cultural memory of the cataclysm that destroyed this mother civilization. The arguments are seductive, painting a picture of a unified human past that was later fractured and forgotten. Yet, mainstream archaeology remains deeply skeptical. Where is the concrete evidence for this global civilization? Where are its ruins, its trash heaps, its unambiguous genetic legacy in our DNA? The hyperdiffusionist model can sometimes feel like an attempt to diminish the genius of indigenous cultures, attributing their magnificent achievements to a mysterious, outside teacher rather than to their own innate creativity and intelligence. So we are left standing between two compelling but incomplete worlds. One offers the comfort of a predictable, isolated human journey, but struggles to explain the profound connections. The other offers the romance of a lost global family, but lacks the hard proof to move from speculation to settled history. Perhaps the truth is not a choice between these two extremes, but a more complex, layered reality waiting to be uncovered. Our journey ends not with a single answer, but with a breathtaking pattern. The tapestry of symbols we have explored, from the spiral to the serpent, reveals a consistency that defies simple coincidence. These are not random scratches or isolated artistic flourishes. They form a coherent language, a silent testament to a profound interconnectedness within the human mind itself. Whether through ancient migration routes carrying a primordial worldview, or through the parallel evolution of consciousness facing the same universal mysteries, the result is the same. We find the same questions etched in stone, the same hopes painted in ochre, and the same cosmic maps carved into the landscape across the entire globe. The debate between diffusion and independent invention will undoubtedly continue, as it should. Yet regardless of the mechanism, these symbols stand as an undeniable shared heritage. They speak of our common wonder at the stars, our collective fear of the dark, and our deep, enduring desire to understand our fragile place in a vast and mysterious cosmos. They are the forgotten vocabulary of our collective prehistoric soul, a silent plea to remember that long before we built walls and nations, we were one family, huddled around a single fire, telling the same stories under the same sky. Let this exploration be a starting point for your own curiosity. What do these connections mean to you? Share your thoughts on these mysterious links in the comments below, and subscribe for more journeys into the hidden depths of